We'd like to welcome everybody to Yonkers Spotlight. I'm London Reyes.
And I'm Stella Suchow, and we will be your hosts today. We have two distinctive guests with us. We have Yonkers City Council Majority Leader Michael Sabatino.
And we have his husband, Robert Voorheis. Welcome. I'd like to get into your bio just a little bit. It's our first show, a little nervous, first time around, so hopefully this all works out. Robert started out interior designer by trade, right? Graduated from Parsons School of Design, so that's pretty good. Former executive director and treasurer of Marriage Equality in New York. I like that, that's pretty impressive. Campaign manager for your husband, Michael Sabatino, sitting right beside you, I must say. And
we didn't get divorced.
And you did, look at that. And who says you can't work together and play together? And you ran, Michael Sabatino ran as an openly gay official in the city of Yonkers, so that's making history. Actually, quite a bit of history, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. Robert, also working on Shelley Mayer's campaign, you were hired as the assembly member of her office, director of office, right?
Right, director.
That was nice. That's nice. And you were there for 5 years?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. That must have been pretty exciting.
It was.
And you left the office and accepted a position at the EEO and training administrator for the city of Yonkers.
Yes.
So that's got to be pretty thrilling as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And we have his second half, Michael Sabatino, sitting here with us. Michael was actually born in the Bronx, and he's been a resident of Yonkers for the past 36 years. He is a graduate of St. John's. He has a BA in medical technology. And then you received your Master's of Science from CW Post in medical biology. So an extensive medical technology background. He's currently an elected official, which he was elected in 2011, and currently serves on the board, and he's a majority leader, and was elected in 2018. Pretty interesting. One of Michael's first pieces of legislation was a zero tolerance for bullying in the workplace, and he was recently appointed as a member of Governor Cuomo's Council on Fire Prevention and Building Codes, correct?
Correct.
Prior to his election, he was a community advocate, and he was also a founding member of Yonkers Committee for Smart Development and the River Community Coalition of Yonkers. So you have deep roots in the city of Yonkers. He also served as a human rights commissioner and was involved in many grassroots movements. And you are very church affiliated. You were the senior warden at your church, and which we found very interesting. You discussed and we read that you're very proud, or your most important, proud of your most important and your role in the marriage equality movement in New York State and the nation. You were a former co-executive director for marriage equality, which we'll get into later on. It was called ME New York. And basically, both of you were the plaintiffs on the case, am I correct? Godfrey versus Spano, which basically brought marriage equality to New York State.
Marriage recognition.
Recognition.
Of marriages performed in other jurisdictions.
Awesome.
Before it was legislated here.
Boy, that's incredible. That's history.
Yeah.
That's something to really, really, really be proud of, I must say.
And you were married in 2003
Yes.
after being together for 25 years.
Oof.
And you actually went to Canada to get married.
Because we couldn't get married here.
Wow.
Nothing had, no state had passed marriage at that point. We had civil unions, but we did not have marriage. It hadn't happened in Massachusetts. We didn't want to wait.
Yeah, my mom was in her 80s, and we wanted to make sure that we did it while she was around, because we didn't know how long it was going to
Yeah,
take.
she's the only parent we had left at that point, and she actually walked us down the aisle. So
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, but we did it in Niagara Falls, Canada. And as we walked in the room, a rainbow came out over the falls, and everybody was looking out the window and not at us.
Well, let's take it from the beginning, okay? Robert, you're not from New York.
No, not from New York. I'm from
Southern.
Yes, I'm from Alabama. I grew up in a town called Enterprise, Alabama, and I actually came out while I was there, and
How old were you more or less when you came out openly?
I was a teenager. I was, maybe 17 or 18. I finally said, "This is who I am."
And this is in Alabama.
In Alabama.
And he
Ooh.
survived.
And I
I
survived.
know,
as well.
courage.
No
Yes.
lynching. I survived.
Woof.
Wow.
So what year, or what was the year that you came up and migrated to New York City?
Well, I had an interim step. I moved to Macon, Georgia. My closest friend, whose name was also Robert, had moved there. And he said, "Well," I said, "I need to finally leave Alabama." So I went to Macon, Georgia, and lived there a couple of years. And in 1977, I met somebody who was from New York, and who happened to be visiting, and we struck up a conversation. We hit it off. I came up to visit, and we decided to explore a relationship, and I moved to New York.
Now, real quick, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
before you ask anybody a question. So the 1970, that's the year of the blackout.
Yeah,
Now, were you in New York?
I moved up here after the blackout.
Ooh, you're
Yeah.
so lucky.
Yeah. I actually had called him to find out how he was
Right.
dealing with it. He
Right.
was okay and all of that.
And he blacked out. No, okay, I'm sorry, guys.
So I guess what I want to know is, how did you two meet? So you had ties with somebody in New York City.
Yeah.
So you finally decided to come up to New York, and then
And then I know the date because it was Veterans Day,
Yeah.
November 11th. And I was out with a friend, and I had broken up with a 2-year relationship. I had been living in Lynchburg, Virginia for a year.
Oh, boy. What is it about Southern
Yeah.
places?
And so I had, that relationship had ended, and I was out with a friend, and he said, "Oh, let's go to this bar." "Oh, I don't really want to go to this bar." And, he dragged me there, and then we met. And
Yeah, by that point, I knew the exploration was over with this. It wasn't going to work. So I said, my best friend, who I had moved in with out in Georgia, had moved to California. So I had no ties to New York. I was planning to go to California. So I said, "Well, I have a few nights left in New York," and went out, and there was Michael.
Are you saying that he changed your world?
Oh well, I guess he did.
as he said, for him it was love at first.
Yeah.
So-
It truly it was. I saw him, and I still know what he was wearing that night. I saw him across
Really?
the room, and
So you caught-
to me, it's like out of a movie, because I saw him for some reason. There was a spotlight on him. Maybe it was my imagination, but I saw
It
him.
was the Yonkers spotlight.
And that was it. I knew that, and I did something that I had never done before, and that was call him first.
wow.
And that was it.
And then a month later, he moved up to the Bronx in an apartment a few blocks from where I was living, because I had moved back with my parents for a brief while. And then
Now, what part of the Bronx are we talking about?
Westchester Square,
Oh,
Throgs
yes,
Nest.
absolutely, yes.
Mhm.
That's a
where I
very
grew
nice
up.
area.
Mhm.
By, like Con Edison area,
Yeah.
Lehman High School.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We lived on Zariga Avenue,
Oh, Zariga, of course,
Yeah.
yes. By the baseball field?
across from Santa Maria School.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, nice. Wow. How long were you guys there for?
See,
Well,
we moved.
I would say
in-
40 years,
yeah,
because
'cause
we've
we
been
moved-
here.
Yeah, we moved in together in '79,
Yeah.
because he lived, we didn't move in right away. And then we moved up here to Yonkers in '82.
Ah,
So 3 years.
now the early 80s in Yonkers.
Right.
Now let's get into
Yeah.
that. Let's start transitioning now.
And
So,
actually, we were totally oblivious to what was going on
Really?
in
Yeah.
Yonkers in 1982. We
Yeah.
didn't have any kids.
now
Yeah,
is this
we didn't-
the current address you're at now? Is
No,
the same?
no,
No.
we moved to the Greystone
Okay.
in 82.
1085 Warburg.
And so what was that like in the early 80s in Yonkers, which at the time, Michael Sussman, desegregation, big rallies, big controversy, you guys being openly gay, I'm sure there was controversy down south with that whole thing, coming to New York, then meeting, coming to Yonkers, it almost seems like a cycle in a sense. You
Yeah.
want to touch on that?
Well, we were a little concerned when we applied to purchase the co-op.
Right.
Because, I mean, we were an
Sure.
openly gay couple, and we didn't know how the co-op board, because you gotta go to a co-op board, how they
Right.
would receive that, but apparently we made a good impression on them.
Yeah.
We were approved.
Because you have to go through that whole,
Approval process.
approval process and interview, and we got through it, and a couple of days later, they said, you've been approved, so
Wow.
we moved in, our first apartment.
Right.
So you guys have, I mean, two completely different backgrounds, medical technology and interior design.
Mhm.
What made you guys first get into politics, or why did you transition from your, current careers, or, the paths that you were, journeying on, and then, became involved in Yonkers politics specifically?
So for me, obviously I was involved in starting up a neighborhood association and the Committee for Smart Development. So that was the local involvement, and then I would go to planning board meetings and zoning board meetings, and I would sit there and I'd say, I could be voting on this stuff, So that kind of propelled me. And then of course we were both very involved in the marriage equality movement.
Right.
Yeah, and
So we did, lots of visits to Albany, and
Yeah.
Robert ended up being a citizen
That's
lobbyist.
my third job at Marriage Equality ultimately became a citizen lobbyist. So I went up and lobbied the senators and assembly members, asking them to support marriage equality.
And that started in 1998, I guess.
Yeah,
is when we
98
started
was-
getting involved in marriage equality.
Yeah. So we got a taste of politics through that, and as Michael said, he felt he wanted more and had to have a vote, instead of just going to meetings and
Because I used to go to the
protesting
city council meetings and stuff like that.
and speak out against
So
issues.
I just
And-
decided to run.
Yeah, for me it was I've always, because I grew up in the South, and I witnessed how people were mistreated.
I went to
African-Americans,
segregated
yeah, I
schools.
went to segregated schools.
Wow.
So I witnessed that, and witnessed how wrong separate but equal actually was. I was not raised to be prejudiced, and I never was, never have been. So when I saw how people were mistreated, and I came up here, and it was interesting to me because I found a different way of discrimination than it was in the South. There's still oppression, but it's done a different way. And to me, for many ways, it was like more obvious, more offensive to me to witness that. Then, of course, the whole gay part was there too, because I was also oppressed.
Right.
And yes, I could hide who I was because I didn't, because I'm white, I could hide what I was. It made it easier for me, but it still didn't make it right for me. And that's when I decided, I wanted to do more.
And also when we had gone to, we had gotten a financial planner, fairly early in our relationship. And they held a seminar on maintaining the wealth of same-sex couples, which was obviously before
How to
marriage.
best protect
How
the
to
money.
best protect the wealth And of course, we thought we had everything, you know, we had wills and we had power of attorneys and we had all of that stuff.
But let me
then
just
when,
stop you there, only because New York, it doesn't recognize you guys as being a couple, therefore something was to happen, you have no financial protection
No,
whatsoever.
exactly,
right,
Okay,
exactly.
so I just want them to
So-
know that, 'cause-
Yeah.
You know, we had a commitment ceremony in 1979 at Washington Square Methodist Church. And during that ceremony, we signed a living together contract, okay? You know, I don't know how much weight it would have held, but certainly didn't protect us from any of the
Estate taxes.
estate taxes, hospital visits, I mean, all the things that
Yeah. Hospital
people don't
visitation,
realize
very
they get,
important.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's 1,138 federal rights and I think
1,300.
1,300 state rights you get when you get married. You know, most people can't even name 5, but of course, we learned about all of those because we couldn't obtain them.
Yeah.
So we, coming out of that seminar, we kind of realized, well,
There's
we
no
really
protection.
don't have much
Every- you know,
protection
everything
from
that-
anything.
Anything that we had acquired.
The only thing was,
wasn't
we
much,
owned our
but-
property joint right of survivorship. But depending on the wealth of your estate at that point, which was kind of low, I mean, we could have been liable for taxes. You know, married couples, everything passes from one spouse to the other without any consequence, only if you're married. So we had to educate ourselves on all of these issues.
Yeah.
And then we found out that there was a group starting, a marriage equality group, and we said, you know, this is important. Of course, we didn't realize that not only did we have to educate the straight community, we had to educate the gay community.
Right.
It's
Because the
nobody-
women didn't
Yeah.
want anything to do with it, because they
Yeah.
thought it was a patriarchal society. And the others said, well, why do we need this? So we had to educate, we had to educate the gay community
Yeah.
about what you get and what you don't get when you're not married. Not saying that they had to make that decision, but you should know what you get
Yeah.
if you don't get married.
And for me, when they would come up to me with these arguments about, well, I don't want to get married. I don't want anything to do with that institution. And I said, you can't say that. You cannot say that until you have the right to marry. Then you can say, I want nothing to do with it. Because right now you're being told you can't have anything to do with it.
And the women, you know, Robert used to say, well, when the first 2 women get married, patriarchy goes away.
Right.
So it was, I tell you, it was educating the masses on this issue. And looking back, I mean, 20 years was not a long time,
No.
less than 20
Yeah.
years to get this done.
And boy, how
But
time
it's-
flies.
Yeah, it is amazing. And the acceptance level, how quickly that has changed. Even, you know, and
Well-
certainly in the city here, but even nationwide, it's
Although in
it's
this
changed.
environment with
Yeah.
45 at the head,
Yes, right.
um,
We're all
Yeah,
in
we're
trouble.
going
Yeah.
back. In fact, just this week, some clerk in upstate New York
Right here in New York.
refused to issue a marriage license to a same-sex couple.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's-
And actually, the governor has asked for an investigation, and the governor actually offered to actually perform the wedding for this couple. So,
That was very nice of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you know, there's still stuff going on, and you know, the whole religious freedom thing, you know, about discriminating against, you know, gay couples if they have own business, they don't want to serve gay people. Are we going to go back to
Yeah.
the
Straight-
50s
straights
and
only.
50s
well,
and 60s at the Woolworths counter when they didn't want to serve black people?
Well, unfortunately, you know, we are taking steps backwards in this climate. And, you
Mhm.
know, I wanted to get into something that you guys did when you were a little bit younger. You know, you were very fortunate where you had part of your life documented in a documentary called March On.
Right.
And talk to us a little bit about that. How'd you get involved and the significance in this movie and why, if you're at home watching this, you should be going online and getting March On right now.
Right. So, before the March on Washington, the last one in 2009, there was an email put out and passed on to us. A filmmaker was looking for people to film during the march and to tell their stories of how and what brought them to go to the March on Washington. So it turned out we were one of 20 couples or individuals that were selected, because what they did was they asked us to give a little bit of a bio about our history and why we were going to the march. So we were selected to be screened. And then while at the March on Washington, they conducted the interviews. And then we were chosen to be one of the 5 couples or individuals featured in this. Having the fact that we were involved in marriage equality, the fact that we had gotten married, and the fact that we were in a lawsuit in the state of New York about getting our Canadian marriage recognized, because there was no marriage rights here in New York. So we became plaintiffs in a case, Godfrey v. Spano, which was about our county executive, Andy Spano, no relation to the current mayor. He issued an executive order in 2006 recognizing marriages legally performed in other jurisdictions. Residents of Westchester sued him for giving benefits to people that were not entitled to them.
Wow.
Yes,
So-
and the benefit, a family pool pass.
Only because
kidding.
we were not Westchester employees.
Right.
If we were Westchester employees,
There would've
it would have
been
been even more
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah.
By Lambda Legal, which is an organization that represents people in the LGBT community for cases like this. And then they hooked up with a pro bono 2006, and we won on the trial court, and then we went to New York's High Court. And in
Yes.
November of 2009, the High Court of New York said that our Canadian marriage had to be recognized here in New York. And actually, it was
Thank you.
the first, we became the first marriage recognized in the state of New York,
Really? Wow.
with another couple that was also in the case with us, because it hadn't been legislated here yet. We didn't get marriage in New York until 2011.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but it meant that anybody who had been married at that point in time, Iowa, Connecticut, and Massachusetts had marriage. There are a
And
couple others.
Holland and
Yeah. So if you've gone
Canada.
anywhere and gotten married and came back to the United States, anywhere
In
from
New
New York, your marriage had to be recognized. So that was, could have been anybody, but it happened to be us. We got.
as
got
I
all the
say,
wins.
you're put on this earth for a purpose. Some of us are lucky enough to find out what that purpose is. And
Amen.
we did.
Yeah.
Amen.
you know.
So, don't go anywhere. We have more to come. We have part 2 coming up. We're going to get more involved with politics now. We're going to make the transition